What would Marcus Garvey think about Ibrahim Traore? What happens when history and revolution collide? What would Marcus Garvey, the father of Pan-Africanism, say about Captain Ibrahim Traore, the young leader who shook West Africa and defied the old world order? Would he praise him, warn him, or pass him the torch? Today, we imagine that conversation across time and what it means for Africa's future. Garvey's Vision Recap. To understand how Marcus Garvey might view Ibrahim Traore, we first need to understand what Garvey truly stood for. Garvey believed in three things: black pride, black unity, and African sovereignty. He envisioned a United States of Africa, a continent free from colonial rule, where black people around the world control their own destiny. His Black Star Line shipping company symbolized more than trade. It was about returning to our roots, spiritually and physically. He inspired millions, but faced sabotage, imprisonment, and betrayal. Yet his dream still echoes. Who is Ibrahim Traore? Fast forward a century, and a new name is rising. Ibrahim Traore. At just 34, he became president of Burkina Faso after leading a military coup in 2022. But Traore isn't your typical military leader. He speaks boldly against France's neo-colonial influence. He's expelled foreign troops, and he's called for African nations to unite and reclaim control of their own resources. To some, he's a liberator. To others, a rebel. But to Garvey, let's imagine what he'd say. Garvey's reaction: praise and parallels. Marcus Garvey would likely see a reflection of himself in Traore's defiance. Here is a young African leader who refuses to bow to Europe, who talks of unity, sovereignty, and dignity, who calls for control of African land and wealth by African hands. Garvey would be proud of Traore's boldness, his Pan-African language, and his refusal to be a puppet. He'd likely say, "This young man walks the path I tried to carve a century ago," and he would salute the call for African resistance and dignity, the caution, power, and responsibility. But Garvey was also a man of vision and wisdom. He would not be blindly impressed by military power alone. He might ask, is this revolution building lasting institutions? Is the movement educating the youth? Is it uniting the people, not just controlling them? Garvey warned about charismatic leaders who don't lay foundations. So while he'd admire Traore's courage, he'd also urge him to build, not just fight. Garvey on economic independence. One of Garvey's biggest concerns was economic slavery. He believed that unless black people owned land, industry, and finance, we were still in chains. He'd likely urge Traore to build Pan-African trade routes, establish regional banks and currency, educate citizens in entrepreneurship, break dependency on foreign aid and loans. Garvey would also warn against rushing into new alliances with China or Russia without self-determination. Never trade one master for another, he might say. The call to Pan-African leadership. Finally, Garvey would see Traore not just as a leader of Burkina Faso, but as a potential leader for Africa and the global black world. He'd challenge him to unite the Sahel with lasting coalitions, call on the diaspora for support, investment, and collaboration, and above all, not lose the vision in the face of pressure, betrayal, or war. He might say, "You carry the fire, but will you spread the light?" Garvey believed that black people everywhere, whether in Lagos or Atlanta, Kingston or Johannesburg, must be connected by one purpose: freedom through unity. Conclusion: what would Marcus Garvey think about Ibrahim Traore? He'd see a bold beginning, a symbol of possibility, a man walking in the echoes of a great, unfinished mission. But he'd also say, the work is not yet done. So now we ask you, is Traore the beginning of a new Garvey movement, or just another chapter in Africa's long road to true liberation?